Rhyme and cards might be hard, stink up the world wide web like a spider fart. You guys said you wanted more rapping. I'm going to make you regret it. I am Dev from the place. That's my name and where I'm from. And I've got some Spider-Man cards for you. No, it's not what you asked for and it's not what you wanted, but you might find that if you try it, you'll actually like it. It's a lot like Brussels sprouts, although I guess the Spider-Man set doesn't have the benefit of being a tiny, delicious little cabbage. So Brussels sprouts are so good. Spider-Man set looking okay, though, too. To be honest with you, there were 20 cards to look at today, which is good because it's not 40 like yesterday, and at least half of them are actually noteworthy. So we got to go ahead and get into it. We got a lot to talk about today. I do a lot of gabbing today. I already know. So let's get into it, starting with the commons as usual. We got to look at Common Crook and Mob Lookout. Now, Common Crook over here, first of all, I guess I got the rarity right on this card. It'd be weird if it was an uncommon with this name, but this is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 2/2 human rogue villain. When it dies, you get a treasure token. So again, fittingly, fairly common line of text nowadays. And even though this isn't a greedy freebooter, I don't think it's anywhere close. That card costs half the mana this one does. It's not even Piggy Bank at 2 mana. And Piggy Bank, sadly, woefully, has not seen any play in Standard, which is terrible because it's actually a pretty good Magic card. So I just really don't see this making too many cuts. But if you want a bunch of treasures, if you need mana in your Aristocrats deck, just play this and freebooter, you're on your way. But look at Mob Lookout next. I put this card second today because I think it's slightly better in limited than the first card. This is 2 mana, 1 and a Dimir hybrid. So pay either a blue and a black. It's your choice, bub. For a 0/3 human rogue villain, when it enters, a creature you control connives. It doesn't even have to be this guy, so it's kind of like a 1/4 for 2 mana. That also helps you filter. And the filtering's good in limited because you get to cast like mayhem spells off of this guy, and you get a body, and it's not too expensive to cast in the first place. If you have a thing that mayhems for 1 or 2 mana, then suddenly you're kind of doing okay. Not every effect that we've seen so far allows you to have a body in play that enables mayhem. So I kind of like that about it, but that's about as far as it goes. So we'll move on to a couple of more black commons here. We got to see Inner Demons Gangsters and Swarm Being of Bees, which I have too much to say about for a little common guy. But anyway, first we'll look at IDG here. This is 4 mana, 3 and a black for a 3/4 human rogue villain. You discard a card, and this creature gets +1/+0 and gains menace until end of turn. You can only do this at sorcery speed. So there are things in this environment, the limited environment specifically, that care about menace. We've already seen a couple of them. And obviously discarding a card is good for reasons we've just discussed. So, works with mayhem, works with the things that care about menace. It's a little expensive for what it is, but you can use it multiple times in a turn if that's what you want to do. You get multiple mayhems out of it. You untap with it and play, and all your mana available, you probably mayhem a couple of things out of it and actually attack with like a 5-power creature. So again, I think this guy is pretty decent in limited, especially for a common. And I don't know that I'd play a bunch of copies of him, but at least one copy to help enable your mayhem stuff sounds like a good deal. Speaking of mayhem payoffs, man, here's one finally. Swarm Being of Bees is 3 mana, 2 and a black for a 2/2 legendary insect villain with flash and flying, and mayhem for a black mana. Not so bad. You can't play a bunch of copies of him because he's legendary or whatever, but I still think if I open 3 at common in my sealed pool, I might play all 3 of them. There's actually kind of a lot to go into as far as like the limited playability of this card. At the very least, it is a better Windrake in a lot of ways. And sure, again, Windrake not legendary, but Windrake also doesn't have flash. So that's pretty cool that they just gave that to him. I also just like this guy. Just throw that out there real quick. I like this guy. I like his art. I like the concept. Seems like a cool dude. But apart from that, man, in limited 1 mana for a 2/2 flash flying is unheard of. That is crazy as far as rate goes, and there's a lot of ways to mayhem this into play in that environment. But at the same time, there's a higher number of reach creatures than there normally are in this environment too. So, maybe that helps, mitigate how good a card like this would normally be with so many discard enablers. So again, you go kind of deep on it. I think there's a lot to talk about with this card in limited. Now, when it comes to standard, we've already got a 1 mana 3/2 that we can mayhem into play. We saw yesterday one of the Scarlet Spider variants. And then Geez, what was it? The Carnage variant, the one that is like a 4/3 trample that mayhems into play for 2 mana and it gets 3 mana value out of your yard at the same time. Like, as far as one and like cheap, I guess mayhem targets in standard, we may have better options, but 1 mana for a 2/2 flash flying is almost always a good deal, even in standard. So I don't know, man. There might be something to it. But the best common of the day, and it certainly is Spider Manifestation. This is 1 and a Gruul hybrid, so red or green, for a 2/2 spider avatar with reach. There's that reach creature we're talking about. You can tap this for red or green, and whenever you cast a spell with mana value 4 or greater, untap this creature. That's pretty nasty, especially for a common. We now have 3 red guys that tap for red mana in standard. All of a sudden, we really didn't get guys like that very often, but now red can just tap guys to ramp, I guess. Red gets mana dorks, and this is a new one. You know, green's always had mana dorks, so who really cares? But even as a green mana dork, at least it's got the reach, and it can untap itself. And it can untap itself like the next turn. You know, like you can play this on 2 and then a 4-drop on turn 3. And when you've done that, you untap this to keep up Snakeskin Veil or something, or some 1 mana effect. Maybe just play Alana Werewolves, whatever you want to do. So I don't know, man. I think that this is a pretty crazy common. I'm not actually sure it's quite on the level that it needs to be to see play in standard. And I know that sounds wild because this thing looks really good, but you got to be fantastic to see play in standard a lot of the time nowadays, even with a deep card pool. So I don't quite know, but it looks like it's getting there to me. Well, let's calm things down just a little bit and look at the first couple of uncommons of the day. We got to see Web Shooters over here, as well as School Days. Now, Web Shooters is 2 mana, 1 and a white for an equipment. It's an artifact because, you know, that's how that works. It equips for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has reach, and whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature an opponent controls. Now, this might could have been common, and I really wouldn't have batted an eye, to be honest. It's kind of a sticky situation when reviewing this card. Sorry, but I can't help myself. It's just not that great. You know, I guess maybe reach is a decent ability to hook up and limited or whatever, but this just, I don't even know how great that is there, to be honest. I like a good tapper. And being able to tap down an opponent's creature every turn when you attack is always better than it looks in limited, but I just can't get too excited. This is what Web Shooters do? You know, maybe I don't want them as much as I thought I did. Now, School Days is, I don't know, slightly more interesting. This is 5 mana, 3 and double blue for an instant. Choose one of these. You can either do homework, which is draw 3 cards. If I'd have known that doing homework was drawing 3 cards, I'd have done a lot more of my homework growing up. You can also fight crime with this, which is counter target spell, draw a card. Now, I guess both of these modes make sense flavor-wise, but, you know, discounting any flavor on this is just a fine Magic card. It really can be. You hold on to it until you got the 5, at which point it draws 3 at instant speed. You could do a lot worse than that, I guess. And then sometimes just counters a spell and draws a card. And I know I've just reread the card to you, but honestly, I think that those are decent modes. I don't think you're going to play the card in standard. 5 mana seems to be right out for an effect like this, but, you know, 3 cards ain't nothing, bub. Like, sometimes being able to counter the thing that would otherwise win in the game seems like a decent mode too, so I can't, like, bring myself to dislike this card. But we got 3 uncommons today that I think are perhaps good enough to be on screen by themselves. We got Rhino's Rampage to start off that train. This is a Gruul hybrid, so either a red or green, you pay that mana. You get a sorcery. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It fights target creature an opponent's controls. When excess damage is dealt to the creature an opponent controls this way, destroy up to 1 target non-creature artifact with mana value 3 or less. So I think this is pretty commander playable. You know, if you got big dudes in your deck, this is just a 1 mana removal spell that also blows up a smallish artifact. You can find a mana rock at the very least that you want to clean up with this, right? And it doesn't have to belong to the player whose creature you're targeting either with the fight effect. So that's kind of nice. You know, you can hit Samantha's creature and then take out like Bobby's guy, Bobby's artifact. So, you know, that's fine. For 1 mana, and it's like really easy to cast too. It can be one of either color. I think that's pretty good in your Gruul deck. So not a bad commander removal spell here because, you know, commander removal spells always have to be able to take out 2 things. And this does that for 1 mana, which I think is a crazy deal. We'll move on here to Molten Man, Incarnation of Hellfire. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 0/0 legendary elemental villain. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic mountain, put it on the battlefield tab, shuffle up. This creature gets +1/+1 for each mountain you control. And when this thing leaves the battlefield, sacrifice a land. This seems really, really good to me. You might not mind sacrificing a land. You know, there are things that care about a land going to the graveyard. There are cards that let you replay lands from your graveyard anyway, so like no harm, no foul, who cares? And when you replay the land from your graveyard, you're going to get landfall. When you get this guy's ETB trigger, you're going to get landfall. But really the best thing about it is that it's like a lumbering world wagon or whatever, just in red, in like mono red, and that's seems like really, really good. I think World Wagon's like the closest comparison, but there's a number of like 3 mana dudes that come into play in can fetch you a land and throw it right onto the table, but like none of them are mono red. That's like the big thing with this is just straight up like a green card, but it sits in red. And this could actually get pretty big. The turn that you play it, it should be a 4/4 if you got nothing but mountains. But then it'll become a 5/5, a 6/6, a 7/7. That's nasty, you know? Like, this seems pretty okay. But speaking of good red cards, man, the best uncommon of the day is better than most of the rares, all but one of them, I would say. I cannot wait to get my hands on Heroes Hangout. I have conflicting emotions. This is probably the worst name for a spell in the entire set that I've seen so far, at least. I don't care for it. That's all subjective. But Wizards is obsessed with alliteration. Every other card has to be alliterated somehow. It's 2 words and they both start with the same letter, baby. Well, let's cook something up. I don't know why they're so obsessed with it. Everyone likes alliteration, but geez Louise, it leads them to come up with names like Heroes Hangout, which I'm done talking about the name. The card is too good, man. A single red mana for a sorcery. Choose one. Either Date Night, exile the top 2 cards. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. That's good. The card doesn't have to have other modes, but it does. It's also going to has Patrol Night on it. 1 or 2 target creatures each get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. So, yikes. Like, that's wild. Like, I'm looking at it on Mythic Spoiler right now, and there was a whole one comment on this, and it's about the double first strike, which is, I think, good. I don't want to discount that mode too much. I think as a combat trick, it's not even a combat trick, it's sorcery speed. But like, the second ability you will use some of the time. You know, it invalidates blocking in some ways. It makes your creature slightly larger. It triggers prowess. It triggers valiant. You know, like, there are things about this that are great as far as the second mode goes. But my God, the first mode is just like sleight of hand. Like, it's the end of your next turn, so it gives you an entire turn to play it. It's only a single mana in your spell slinging deck. It gives you 2 looks. You know, it's not quite sleight of hand, but it is as close as red is going to get to sleight of hand. I think this might even have the chops to replace a card like sleight of hand in the Vivi deck, because the ability to sometimes give your Vivi, you know, +1/+0 in first strike, and it's giving your Vivi a +1, so obviously it makes more mana now, and just, geez Louise, dude. Like, this one card could make your Vivi give you 2 more mana. And also first strike. So, I don't know, dude. I think this is a insane Magic card that'll see play in more than just Vivi. It'll see play in tons and tons of stuff. We see a lot of effects in this set alone, but recently, that care about playing cards out of exile or playing cards from anywhere other than your hand. This works with all of those for just 1 mana. Like, what a banger of a Magic card. But on to the rares here. Sorry to leave you behind, Heroes Hangout. I really think this is going to be one of the best cards in the entire set. So serial. But we'll move on to The Spot, Living Portal, to start the rares today. He looks cool. 5 mana, 3 a white and a black for a 4/4 legendary human scientist villain. When the spot enters, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent and up to 1 target non-land permanent card from a graveyard. When the spot dies, put him on the bottom of his owner's library. If you do, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. So it's kind of neat. You can target your own stuff with this, which I think could be kind of useful and even combo-y. He does cost a lot of mana, so I'm not sure how good any potential combos would be, but there's probably stuff with this. I also like that he never really dies. Like, he has to be exiled or something for you to actually deal with the guy. It's also interesting that if you play it, and then either you or your opponent bounces it back to your hand, well, now the stuff is exiled forever. So that's kind of a cute little wrinkle if you want to look at it that way. Orzhov Pixie doesn't want 5 drops, but still, I think that's kind of neat. Either way, man, he does some cool stuff, and I like that he goes on the bottom of your library, and then you shuffle him up with a fetch land, you catch him again, and he's another removal spell, right? Plays around in yards. He can hit something in your yard when he comes into play, and then when he dies, well, then, you know, you get the thing back to your hand from your yard. That seems okay. So, not so bad. He can even target a copy of himself in your yard so that when he dies, he gets the thing back. He gets himself back from your yard, kind of. That he goes back into your hand. And you can play another copy of him like that. So, I don't know. Again, there's tricks with this, which I think is fitting for the kind of villain he seems to be. But he honestly, even for like an Orzhov Legend, which I'm just supposed to kind of like, you know, out of principle because it's my guild and all that. I'm still just not like the biggest fan of this in the rare slot. But, you know, altogether, again, it's a fun little tricksy card that I like the design of. But here's your big splashy set-specific Mythic of the day, everybody. It is hard to say set-specific Mythic. That is my third take on that. Spider-Verse is here. This is 5 mana, 3 and double red for an enchantment. The legend rule doesn't apply to spiders you control. Yikes. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you may copy it. If you do, you may choose new targets for the copy. If the copy is a permanent spell, it gains haste. Do this only once each turn. Boo! Boo! I mean, I'm taking the trouble out of my day to cast spells from anywhere other than my hand. Why can't I do it every time? Once a turn? That's silly, man. I want to copy all my stuff. Anyway, man, I was just saying there's some stuff in this set that cares about playing spells from anywhere other than your hand. This is one of those things. But, you know, just like the spot, this costs 5 mana. So, like, any standard combos that we might have with this are probably a little bit out of reach, just as far as, like, you know, what turn they're going to actually happen. I'm not sure you can pull it off unless you're streaming, just trying to have a good time or something. But for the most part, I think this is a fun commander card. Legend rule not applying to spiders you control is a great line of text, you know, not only because you can play all the Spider-Men in the world. I guess that's what it's really for, you know, and this might be fun and limited, by the way. Throw that out there. But, you know, if you can engineer a way to get like Jun spiders cooking or something, now all your Ishkanas and stuff are like not legendary. That's great. You can copy the Ishkanas and give them haste and you get even more spiders. My goodness. I want to cook with it like pretty bad. It's just like lame that all the cards that care about spiders in this set are red, and I think they did that on purpose so it wouldn't shake up Commander so much, but we're going to make it happen one way or the other. I was excited about more spider synergy in Commander, and we've gotten a few pieces for the green-black decks, but not enough. So if we're forced to, we will make it work. Well, Doc Ock's Tentacles is next. Ew, this is a single mana for an equipment. It's an artifact. It costs 5 to equip it. That's a lot, but here's the deal. Whenever a creature you control with mana value 5 or greater enters, you may attach this equipment to it. Equipped creature gets +4/+4. So we did not learn our lesson with beans, I guess, you know. It's not a whole lot of ways to abuse this in standard right now, but we do still have a lot of those creatures, like Hollow Marauder is one of them, you know, all these big dudes that look like they cost 8 mana, but they really only cost 1 black mana if you have dudes in your yard. There's like a 5/5 Death Touch and a 6/6, and these guys exist. And this is really, really good with those guys. The problem is a lot of those guys are already 5/5s. So if you have a 5/5, how good is a 9/9? Pretty good. You know, so I'm just not sure that you actually play this. I think a lot of times it just gets milled into your yard or whatever in decks like that. But those are the decks that can play it right now, I guess. And if you play an Overlord or something on full mana, you can just equip it. I guess if you play it on Impending, it won't work. But if you play it on full mana, it'll work on those guys. And every other large man that you happen to have in your deck. And even if all you're doing is making a large man even larger, I guess that's worth it some of the time. Is it worth the slot in your deck? Well, if you care enough about power toughness, if you care enough about equipment and you have things that proc it, if you're ramping and you're playing 5 drops like way earlier than you expect to, all these things make for a pretty decent equipment, but that's also a lot of hoops you have to jump through, so I'm just not like too sure about it. That said, it also gives me kind of an ominous feeling just looking at it, and that's not just because of the tentacle references. It's just because like there's something about it that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Like this could be a problem at some point, but even if it is, it's just like a vanilla +4/+4, and things could be worse than that. We got good removal nowadays. So we'll move on to Cheering Crowd here. This is 1 Gruul hybrid, either a green or a red, for a 2/2 human citizen. At the beginning of each player's first main phase, that player may put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. If they do, add a colorless for each counter on it. As a matter of fact, they add a colorless for each counter on it. I should really make that extremely clear, because you're going to play this on turn 2, say go on no mana, and then your opponent's going to happily put a counter on this, add a colorless mana to their mana pool, cast a 1 mana removal spell, and then a 2-drop. It's not going to happen every single time, but if you're trying to get this to work in standard, I think it's going to happen enough that it's going to be extremely frustrating for you. Now, if you get to untap on your turn 3 with this, then suddenly we're looking at, you know, a 2 mana 4/4 that also ramps you. Assuming your opponent also made the mana with it, because they probably will most of the time. They won't always have to. But, you know, even if you're the first person to make mana with it, it's still a 2 mana 3/3 at that point that was really easy to cast and ramps you on your next turn. So I think this could potentially be better than a lot of the dorks we have access to in standard right now. I'll say that much, but at the same time, the fact that it's, symmetrical, I don't love. I don't love that your opponent gets mana, and I really don't love that they get the mana first. So kind of a dangerous proposition, but again, you untap with it and play, you get to use it for more than a turn or two, then suddenly things are starting to look all right. You're getting a lot of mana out of this, and it's like a 5/5. So, grows pretty fast, so it might be another card that could potentially be dangerous. So I'm kind of a fan at the end of the day. I'll cheer it on, but I'll also cheer on Mary Jane Watson over here. 2 mana, 1 and a Selesnya hybrid for a 2/2 legendary human performer. Whenever a spider you control enters, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn, though, you dingus. So again, you can't play this in Shelob. You can't play this in Ishkana. And that's dumb because it's got the white color identity. And again, I think they're doing this on purpose and stop, honestly, you can only see, as a guy who likes spiders in Commander and wants to build spiders decks in Commander, you can only see so much of this before you're you're screwing with us on purpose. This would have been an insane card in spiders, but not too broken. Okay, I got a 2 mana draw piece that only draws 1 extra card per turn, and I have to enable it somehow. There are going to be turns I don't draw a spider. You know what I mean? So just why why does it have to be Selesnya color identity? I hate it. Thanks, I hate it. But at the same time, I guess outside of Commander, which is usually the formats I'm looking at, in Standard, you can just say this is easier to cast than if it was one or the other. I tend to actually really like hybrid mana on cards. I don't like that it messes around with Commander color identity and all that. But at the same time, in Standard, this is a pretty good card if you're building a spiders deck. This will also probably get hit by a removal spell. And, they'll probably even get mana value out of the deal. But in any case, this is another one where if you can either play this on turn 4 into 2-drop spider or 1-drop spider on turn 3, or you play it on turn 2 and it actually lives to draw you 2 cards the next couple of turns, it's getting you all the value in the world, and it's kind of making it worth it to play a spiders deck. So I am a fan of the card. I like I'm in love with Mary Jane, as a matter of fact. I'm in love with Mary Jane, but I can't get past the fact that they for sure did this on purpose, and you can't play it in Ishkana. It just makes me a sad panda. But, when you really get down to brass tacks, this is a pretty decent card that cares really only about spiders, but that might matter more when we go to Lorwyn and get a bunch of changelings. So just keep your eye on cards like this. While I'm on Mary Jane and the spider synergy, I might as well show you Madam Web Clairvoyant. This is an uncommon, but I can't for the life of me figure out why it's not a rare. Not because it's good. I don't know if the card is actually that good, but I do think it looks like it could have been an intro pack rare. Madam Web Clairvoyant is 6 mana, 4 double blue for a 4/4 legendary mutant advisor. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast spider spells and non-creature spells from the top of your library. Whenever you attack, you may mill a card. It's pretty good. It's better than the Madam Web movie. And I never saw it. I'm just hopping on the bandwagon. Maybe that movie was incredible. It's entirely possible that Madam Web was the best movie of last year and everyone just doesn't know what they're talking about. But I'll take everyone's word for it. Either way, man, this is a really, really cool effect. You can cast non-creature spells from the top of your library. You can just cast non-creature. Screw the spider thing. I mean, the spider thing's nice, but you can cast non-creature spells on the top of your library? What? That's pretty good, but, it's 6 mana, so it'll never see play in Standard or anything, but I don't know, man, just random Commander 99 of a card? Could be. But watch out, everybody, we got our brand new card of the day that is not on my list of cards, just reloaded Mythic spoiler, and here is Lizard Connor's Curse. I have yet to read this, but I know it's a 4 mana 5/5, so whatever. 2 mana of any color, and then 2 green mana, so that's, again, 4 total mana for a 5/5 legendary lizard villain with trample. It's also got lizard formula. When lizard enters, up to 1 other target creature loses all abilities and becomes a green lizard creature with base power and toughness 4/4. So you're telling me that this is a 4 mana 5/5 trample removal spell? That's what you're trying to tell me right now. Loses all abilities? Up to 1 other target creature loses all abilities. It's not even until Lizard leaves the battlefield or something. It's just forever. So you could blink this and hit something else. And I know 4/4 is pretty big, so it's not a removal spell, but I guess it's noteworthy that the 4/4 can't swing into Lizard. Right, so that's good. And that way it's like a removal spell. I think you're going to target your opponent's creatures a good bit, but you can also target your own guys. If you wanted, I guess you play this in Tifa. You probably won't. I think like Ouroboros and even Mightform Harvester are like better calls for the Tifa deck, and they don't see that much play in Tifa. But, still, you play this, and Tifa's base PT becomes 4/4. Mossborn Hydra's base PT becomes 4/4. That could be freaking phenomenal, So that's not terrible. Even if you're just making your Llanowar Elves into a 4/4, like on turn 3, you use your Llanowar Elves to play this, and you make your Llanowar Elves into a 4/4. Business. I'm kind of signed up for this. You see, I'm old, and I come from the days of Juzam Jin, where that's like a 4-mana 5/5 that does a damage to you every turn. It's the best card in the world. So I still haven't caught up to this exact form of power creep, where now like 4-mana 5/5s can just have a keyword ability and no downside, and it's fine. Like, it's just a normal Magic card. I can't wrap my brain around it. And the fact that this has trample too, like, my goodness gracious. This is a pretty good looking Magic card to me. But speaking of good Magic cards, which we've been doing for a majority of the day, it feels like so far, let's take a look at one of my favorite cards in the set so far, and maybe one of the most Commander playable cards we've seen in the set too, which is really saying something. This is Villainous Wrath. 5 mana, 3 double black for a sorcery. Target opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures they control. Then destroy all creatures. Look, I don't know if maybe Deadly Cover-Up is a better 5-mana Wrath for black decks in Standard. It may actually end up being that, but that doesn't preclude me from playing this card in all my black decks. We got Corrupt in black right now. If you want to play mono black burn, use Villainous Wrath them, wipe the board on one turn and deal 3 or 4 to them at least, and then hit them with the Corrupt for 6 when that happens. You got all kinds of other mono black burn, right? It doesn't even have to be in creatures form, but you do have Iridescent Vine Lasher to deal direct damage to them. So man, mono black burn is on the menu, and now it has the best sweeper it could ever hope for, dude. It doesn't even hit all the players, which would be better for Commander, but in 1v1s it's better because you don't have to lose any life. Even if you do have Vine Lashers that you've offspringed in play or something, sure, you lose them, but you don't lose any life for that, which I think is pretty nice. It's safe, But if your opponent's a tokens deck or something like that, sayonara, it's over, Bubba. They're going to take 5 or 6 damage to the sweeper. And in Commander, you just target the one player that has the most creatures, or maybe the person that ticked you off a couple of turns ago, or maybe the person that went back on your political deal that you had, or maybe the person that gunned for you last turn. It really doesn't matter. Just pick somebody you don't like and let it fly, because in Commander, there are plenty of setups where this is going to do 7 damage to a person's noggin, immediately. So there's a lot of damage, a lot of damage in the right situation, and I don't think it's going to be tough to engineer that situation. In Standard, if it just bolts the opponent, I'm pretty happy with it, dude. Honestly, so I love this thing. I love any black card that burns an opponent, and this is one of the better versions of that effect that I've kind of ever seen. I've been on that train since Drain Life in 1995. So when I see stuff like this, I pop every time. Friggin' CM Punk is coming out or something. I get happy about it, but I don't even like CM Punk that much. I don't know why I chose him. Jey Uso. It's Jey Uso is coming out. I'm yeeting everywhere. If you don't get that reference because you don't watch wrestling, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but it sounds really dirty. I promise it's not. Either way, this is it's a good card. I feel like I cap off every entry today, but it's a good Magic card. But what else do you say about it? This is a pretty good Magic card. But we just got a couple of cards left to look at today, and here is one that I think we should take seriously. This is Black Cat. Cunning Thief, 5 mana, 3 and double black for a 2/3 legendary human rogue villain. A lot of those today. Started the video with them, finishing the video with them. There's one more card after this, but what do you get a load of the C2B trigger, y'all? When Black Cat enters, look at the top 9 cards of target opponent's library. Exile 2 of them face down, then put the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. You may play the exiled cards for as long as they remain exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast spells this way. Sure, it's a 5 mana 2/3. It dies to a fully loaded Torch the Tower. It dies to a Nowhere to Run. It dies to a blah, 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 blah. I don't care. Look at this ETB trigger, my guy. Look at, speaking, we were talking about 5 mana things that the Pixie deck might want to play earlier. Does this fit the bill? I don't think you play it in Pixie. I really don't. Pixie's supposed to be a modern deck or a legacy deck where everything costs 1 or 2 mana and you're just going ta-ta-ta-ta-ta every turn. That's really fun. So you probably don't play 5s. But either way, this is maybe the best black 5-drop in Standard. And that too is saying something. If you don't count the fact that Unholy Annex is kind of a 5-drop. We got Aclazotz in this format, Zodiark, a couple of other really good 5s. And I think this is instantly the one you want to play, buddy. This could even see play in the Dimir, tempo deck, even though that deck doesn't necessarily want 5s. I'm not saying it shows up for sure, but this enter the battlefield trigger is unbelievable, dude. 9 cards. You're talking about looking at 9 cards and getting 2 of them? That's better than a dig through time. That's way better than a stock up. And I do not care that I'm looking at my opponent's library. First of all, I'm taking their best cards away from them in that case, if that's what I want to do with it. But, you know, everyone plays removal. I'll get their removal spells. Everyone plays solid creatures. I'll just take solid creatures from you. You know, you got a Wrath over there, and it looks like I kind of need one of those right now. I'll take that. Hey, you got a stock up over there. I'll just turn my stock up into another stock up. This time on my own library. This card's wild, dude. This card's so good. 5 mana, again, is the only mitigating factor on this, and that might be enough, sadly, to completely mitigate the card, but I don't think so, dude. You've got a great bounce target, but beyond that, you've got a phenomenal blink target. Incredible copy target, despite the fact that it's legendary. I'll note that there's a few things in this set that allow you to effectively ignore the legend rule, but even if you're not ignoring the legend rule, you're still getting the ETB trigger again. It's crazy. I do not care that it's opponent's library. You are getting gas one way or the other. And even if it does die to removal, let's go back to that. It dies to removal. It replaced itself twice with like basically guaranteed good cards. So this lady right here, maybe I just like her because she's a cat lady. Maybe that's all that's doing it for me. And I'm biased, but no, this is one of the better ETB triggers I've seen on a creature in like maybe literally years. This thing is wild. But last card of the day before we perform our final reload here is Spooter Woman. I was really going to say Sporter Woman. Spider Woman, Stunning Savior. This is 2 mana, 1 and an Azorius hybrid for a 2/2 legendary spider human hero with flying and Venom Blast. Artifacts and creatures your opponents control enter tapped. This card is 2 mana. This card is only 2 mana to cast. We've seen variations of this before, but they are not usually 2 mana, and they're not usually 2/2 flyers either. Like, sure, this dies to a bunch of removal, I guess. You know, it's the worst thing I can say about it, but a 2 mana 2/2 flyer is not a terrible rate in and of itself. It's very easy to cast. It fits in a couple of different decks, and I think that it's probably pretty standard playable, man, especially if there are artifact decks floating around out there, and they can't use their Soul Cauldron the turn it comes into play now. And that's even if, you know, especially if you went first, they really can't use it even on their turn too, if they have a way to use it. So I think that's kind of cute. And just against the Soul Cauldron decks, it at least does a thing, you know. Against any hasty deck with Screaming Nemesis or whatever, Nemesis, it works in those piles too. There's just a lot to like about it in Standard, but you know, moving to other formats, I think this could be potentially, you know, legacy playable, just because all of their Moxen and other, you know, 1 and 0 mana artifacts are going to come into play tapped, and that's a huge deal. When we move over to CEDH, I'm going to skip EDH for this one because I think it's a fine card in EDH, that much obvious, but I think this has the chops for CEDH, and that is a format I do not know too much about, but this looks like exactly the kind of card that would be good in that format. So I just think she goes everywhere. Personally, you know, Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, I don't know. She's going to do something somewhere. She's just a really efficient package that messes up a lot of what your opponent's trying to do. You know, oh, you're not playing too many creatures. You're probably playing a few artifacts, you know, and if you're playing artifact creatures, we're just toast, you know. So I think this is actually really good, mostly because of how efficient it is and how much it's going to annoy opponents. This will absolutely annoy everybody. That's all, Ski Kowalski. But before you punch out for the day, make sure you do all the YouTube stuff. Get in the comments. Let me know how you felt about all of these cards, because like I said at the beginning, I feel like we saw some really powerful cards that could like go in multiple formats. Not just Spider-Woman, but that Heroes Hangout. Again, the name is terrible, I think. I'm not a big fan of it, but one way or the other, the card itself looks phenomenal. So, again, really good stuff today that I kind of can't wait to mess around with. And I just didn't think I'd feel that way going into the Spider-Man set, but there are plenty of cards that I want to play. And I'm going to talk about them tomorrow over on the stream. Now, every Thursday we stream on Twitch. We usually do it around 8:30 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. That's what time I'm going to try to hit it tomorrow. When we get there, we're going to cover all the previews that happen tomorrow. And we're going to talk about the 5 cards that I can't wait to play. Not the best cards in the set, not the best commander or standard cards or sleepers or anything. All that comes later. we're just going to have some fun and talk about the cards I can't wait to brew with tomorrow. So again, if you sound like that's something you're maybe interested in, come on over to twitch.tv/SBMTGDev, link in the description, and hang out with us on Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. EST. That's all the pitching I got for Twitching, but I've also got a Patreon, and I kind of need your help over there. I'm not going to lie to you. Just $1 a month is all it takes, and you can vote on what decks we do for Spider-Man season, and Avatar season, and Lorwyn season, and Strixhaven season, because that's coming up after that. There are actual Magic sets coming out before too long. So help us out on Patreon so we can kind of bridge the gap to Lorwyn, because I feel like a lot of people might be quitting Magic right now, and it's you know, so I would really like to be able to the channel to last until we get to Lorwyn and people start actually caring about Magic again. That'd be nice. So if you want to help the channel stick around, I guess $1 all it takes. So links in the description to all the stuff I've been talking about, but I've had your ear for too long. You got more important stuff to do with your day. You got a family. Go hang out with them. Anyway, I love you. I'm Dev from the place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.